Okay, with restrictions loosening really around the world, how are you three seeing the bookings reflect that?
So I guess the starting point is that the countries that are easing up, states that are opening up or didn't even lock down fully as others, are definitely seeing bookings coming back faster. No surprise there. I think the real interest comes when you dig into segments and how in different countries, in different parts of the world, different segments are behaving in very different ways, whether that's segments of people on different devices or different age groups. And I know some of the data Andrew's been looking at certainly shows that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look around the world, I mean, it's kind of, as Charlie says, it's not really a huge surprise that the places which are shut down, everything's down. I mean, it's like a lot of European markets bookings are down about 95% year on year. If we look at the US, what's quite interesting is we're seeing, I guess, two trends really. There's mobile bookings are up incredibly. We've seen those up about 75% in the US, in the States and in the hotels which are open. We have seen a massive, I mean, incredible shift towards short-term bookings, something which I've never seen before to that extent, you know, with way north of 50% of bookings being a day or so before. Actually, last week, interestingly, we've seen that shift a bit. So we've started to see that soften now. So it's kind of below 40%, but really high. The other thing which we've seen in the US is that there's a big shift. There's almost like two worlds, well, three in a way. There's kind of where's open, where's not. That's obvious. You don't really need data to kind of figure that one out. But we do see a big difference between economy hotels and luxury hotels. Luxury hotels are kind of wiped out, largely in terms of number of bookings. They're recovering a bit. Weekends are better, but budget hotels are doing loads better. We've seen, particularly in Texas, Florida, even in parts of California outside the Bay Area, Alabama, we've seen the bookings have been okay, particularly in budget hotels. And then if we look at the demographics, there's kind of another sort of switch there, really. I'm trying not to stereotype, but we've seen a big shift towards the number of people who are booking being guys under 30, people who are into things like computer gaming, fast food. Essentially, if you look at the demographics, it's guys who want to party, which typically on a lot of these hotels that we're looking at were not the core demographic for them. But now if we look at the number of bookings, really high proportion and very flat as you get older in age group. But under 30, we're seeing big increases in the number of bookings. So it's definitely not business as usual at the moment, for sure.
It would be interesting if the young male under 30 saves this industry.
I don't know about the gender because I don't have that kind of data, but definitely seeing the same thing on age groups, and it is the younger traveler who is coming back fastest.
Yeah, you know, we're seeing the same thing at a lot of our revenue management clients that are in some of those more kind of beach destinations, even if they did skew very heavily towards, you know, families or an older crowd in the past. Again, it is very last minute. And I know, Charlie, I think you guys had published some of that same data out of Singapore a little bit ago, where there's this massive shift towards mobile. Yeah. Because all of these bookings are domestic, they're all local. It's, you know, a lot of it's drive market. So we are definitely seeing that shift, and that's something hotels are having to kind of adjust to and actually incorporate that into their strategy as far as how they're marketing and what they want to do with their message and their positioning of their hotel as they're trying to win this business back. Also knowing that it's a different type of business and a different market than maybe what they do want long term. So how they're going to have that strategy for now and appeal to that market while also balancing that longer term appeal to their core market. Right, because that's one interesting thing that we've seen in some of our data with SHR is this huge split that you guys reference, where for the states that are opening up, a very, very short booking window, but we are starting to see more production longer term. You know, we're not seeing any of that kind of middle of the road 7 to 14 day production. Yeah. It's either 1 to 3 days or same day, or it's 60 plus days out, you know, and that market and that guest that's booking 60 days out is probably a very different guest than that one that's on their mobile phone, you know, booking a bargain at the beach for the weekend. So that's an interesting thing that hotels are going to have to navigate how they approach their marketing and their pricing.
And my immediate takeaway when I think about, okay, so what would I do if I'm a hotelier on that, is I think any of those offers or rates that you used to have, which were non-refundable, which obviously now are going to be useless for the rest of the year, you change those out and instead come up with offers or opportunities that are either very last minute or long term, and make those the key bits of promotion and try and cut out the clutter otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen that too. Actually, we've seen a big change the last week. So what we were seeing is very much as you both have described there, it was either very, very last minute or way, way out into the future. And last week or so, we've seen it change a bit. So we've seen sort of 30-day booking window pick up quite a lot in a lot of markets, actually, and particularly the US in the last week. And I think a lot of that's what you're saying there, Charlie. We've seen hotels doing, flexible offers, a lot of 30-day advanced booking deals in the marketplace, pay before you stay, voucher offers, all that kind of stuff. It does seem to be making a difference. And this last week, the US has shifted dramatically in terms of it's about 30% we've seen this week of bookings. We've been around about that 30-day booking window, which was kind of non-existent just a week ago. And we've seen that in other European markets coming out of lockdown as well. I think it's kind of, people are still a bit nervous to come out even when restrictions are easing. But at the same time, they think, well, probably in about 4 weeks' time, it's going to be safer. So that's starting to come back a bit. So that kind of, I think you call them frat boys in the US, the group I was talking about earlier, the party animals, it could be very, very short term. It could just be a blip in the data. But big changes in some of those booking window dynamics right now.
Can I ask, sorry, you mentioned there the vouchers. I've really not been sure about these because it doesn't appeal to me personally. So that's why I've been uncertain. Have you, because I know a bunch of hotels have said, here's a voucher, get whatever, pay $100 and get $150 worth of credit for when you do want to book in the future.
Yeah.
I can't see myself ever doing that. Do you think people are taking it up? Is it maybe loyal guests who know they will come back? They're the ones that are taking it up. Is it working?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm like you. I mean, I'm not very good at booking travel in advance generally. So it doesn't really appeal to me because I generally don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, let alone in a month's time. But we've seen a lot of hotels getting traction on it with mainly existing databases. So people who stayed with them before. And it's anecdotal, but it seems to be particularly sort of birthdays, anniversaries, all that kind of things where people are planning to celebrate anyway, and they think it's far enough in advance, it's probably going to be okay. That's where they're taking advantage of this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and we've seen traction too with not necessarily the vouchers, but just still holding those kind of prepaid reservations, which is kind of the same thing, but still doing a prepaid reservation, but it's reschedulable. And I even, on the airline side, I saw a special from Hawaiian Airlines from a few airports that were saying book now and you can reschedule for free for up to 2 years. And it was an incredible deal. And I know that it really sold. So there's definitely a market for it. But I think, like Andrew said, a lot of it's already your guest base, right? It's not going to attract new people, but it is a good way to kind of stay engaged with your loyal customers that you already have. And
it's a cash flow thing as well. It's a way of getting some bookings on the system now, even if they're not staying for a while.
Yeah.
So how is our data that you've been looking at in US, Europe compared to what we've seen in Asia and are currently seeing in Asia?
So I definitely, we see, well, so the key thing to know about Asia, of course, is there is no one Asia and every country is different. And so we're seeing, South Korea and Hong Kong behaving in a similar way. But otherwise, can be quite drastic differences between them. Certainly, it seems like the data out of China or the Chinese outbound traveler as well. It resembles already what we've heard, younger, more last-minute purchases. What we've seen in some countries that were relatively mobile strong anyway, is the mobile has actually overtaken desktop. So in Hong Kong, mobile was maybe running at about 40% versus 60% on desktop, maybe a bit less than that. And now mobile is out in front 70% of all bookings. South Korea, again, mobile's overtaken, and Indonesia. But other countries, not so much. So where mobile was, a device of choice, and for no doubt for other sorts of reasons like the last minuteness of it all, it's really taken over. I suspect that there's one of those, I think it was Microsoft who said 2 years worth of global like technical evolution has happened in 2 months or something. I suspect mobile's like one of the key benefits of that. But then I look around at hotel mobile websites and I see horrendous, awful experiences to book on, and so that will hold it back for a bit longer, no doubt. We will see.
Yeah, we see a couple of things. I think everything Charlie said there, I would echo. And the Asian markets are so different in general. I mean, Japan, for example, we work with quite a few Japanese clients, and they obviously were quite early into the crisis. But although their bookings went down quite a lot for mid-January, they've gone down a lot recently. They were down, but they were out. Recently, they're just flat, and that's because you've had that kind of second wave of coronavirus, which they thought they kind of got it under control. We're seeing that in a few Asian markets, and now they're tightening up the lockdown. Most of Japan is in a sort of state of emergency. Tokyo is pretty much locked down. Interesting with China and the US, there's a lot of parallels we see between China and the US. I think Charlie touched on one there, the mobile thing for sure, the age group thing. But also if you look at the shape of the curve, it's very, very similar. If you take the Chinese curve, which plummeted rapidly very quickly in terms of hotel reservations, since it's recovered, there's a kind of like about 6, maybe 8 week lag in terms of the US reservation data and the Chinese reservation data, but then the shape of the curve is very similar. The big difference, which is an open question, which I think we will only find out with time, is that, of course, China, that demand picked up after they'd brought massively down the number of new infections in the country, whereas in the US, that may not be the case at the moment. But in terms of the hotel openings and the booking curve and the domestic trends and the demographics, there are a lot of parallels we're seeing between China and the US right now, just with a lag.
So we're running up against our time limit. Any final thoughts? It seems like there's a theme here for sure. Not a lot of things have changed week over week, but mobile seems to be a big theme, and many hotels are not ready for that, right?
Yeah, I think my key takeaway suggestion would be pick one of the personas we've talked about and pretend that is you. Imagine yourself as a 30-year-old young man who's looking for a drive to stay. Imagine that is you. Be that person. Now pick up your mobile phone and browse and try and book your hotel, thinking, okay, what am I looking for? Why is there a picture of like this married couple with their kids? Look for the things that don't feel like they fit these segments. If we believe that one segment's mobile, then go try and booking your hotel right now on mobile. For a lot of hotels, you may not have done that for a year, and you might be surprised how bad it is. If you think you're one of these segments, you're looking for last minute or you're looking for a long stay, go through the process and see, are the offers there? Is there an incentive? Does it feel like it's providing the right things? I think too often, right, people forget to go back and have a look at their site from as if they were a different persona. So that's what I'd recommend.
Yeah, and kind of building on that too, I think, as we had discussed earlier, is hotels also need to keep in mind who's booking right now and walk through the booking process as if they are that potential guest and what would be attractive to them, but also keeping in mind kind of their core customer segment and where they see their business really returning to long-term, and keeping that in mind for what's showing up in 6 months. If you go shop December or January or even later into the fall, you're probably not going to want to be appealing to that same guest that you're appealing to now. So making sure to just keep these different pieces of their strategy in mind when they're setting up their rates and packages and walking through that booking process, and expanding on the mobile thing, mobile check-in, mobile keys, all that stuff. Mobile's going to be so important because it's going to be part of the whole touchless, return to the hotels.
Definitely. I mean, I think I'd echo all of those points. I mean, one thing I'd say slightly different from what you just mentioned, Jason, week on week, we have seen quite a few changes in the countries and in the states which have relaxed their restrictions. And really that's that move away from that very short-term booking. We're seeing, it'd be interesting to see whether it continues, that those sort of 30-day booking windows are coming back. But very much as Nicole said, if you look to Asia and the markets which have had this for a bit longer, it's not just the mobile check-in, it's also thinking about what you need to do in order to minimize contact in the hotel, and things like mobile key, mobile app, are things that a lot of hotels are neglected, and often the argument is mobile booking is not big enough to bother with that. That's going to become something which is much more serious. And then the other thing, business travel's fallen away almost everywhere. It's a leisure traveler you're looking at. Get into, what we're seeing is that different demographic groups are behaving very differently to how they normally would do. Different types of traveler are too. So drill into your data, segment, and maybe think about different offers for different groups. Your past travelers, maybe the vouchers. Charlie, not the vouchers. Maybe he wants to party with the 30-year-olds. Think about segmenting your offers according to your audience, I guess, is the takeaway.
Great conversation, guys. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.